Don't be a wantrepreneur. Create a business that attracts investors. Hello, everyone. My name is Tessa. I'm Director of Marketing at IdeaPros, and I have a special guest with us today, Ira Hayes. Hi, Ira.
How are you doing, Tessa?
Good. And Ira is VP of Strategic Development at IdeaPros. So we're going to be able to dive into how do you set yourself up to create a business that attracts investors? And he's prepared there's 4 main things. I mean, there's more obviously than that, but let's just say that we have 4 things we're going to highlight with you today, Ira, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Obviously there's a backstory to this, and what is that? Why do people want their business to be investable in the first place? Well, I guess we'll start there and then we'll dive into that.
Yeah, and this is going to go a little more granular, but so how you want to grow and what you want to do is take something you're passionate about, your idea, and really, move that forward. And a lot of times that takes investment. And in order to get investment correctly, you need to establish an investment vehicle or something to invest in. And so that's what we're going to dive into a little more is, how do I need to structure something? So as if you saw the first slide, so that it's not a square wheeled bicycle. So your investment vehicle can roll through.
Oh yes, here, let me put it on the screen
there
for you.
Go. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't create a square wheeled bicycle. Like, don't limit yourself. So you want to set up a proper structure and a proper plan. And this goes along with how you're going to build your idea, grow your idea, get it to more people, and then really allow for that initial investment. And as entrepreneurs, we use this word a lot. And so you have to understand or we try to make it understandable what we're trying to do. We're trying to create future value. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneur is someone who takes risk, financial risk normally, upfront to create a future value. And how you do that normally is through a vehicle, which is an investment vehicle, normally a company, LLC, or some type of structure that allows other people to participate and roll down the road.
Perfect. And if you're watching us live, #live, I did forget to say that because we have so much information. I know we're going to fill up this whole time. So let us know you're watching live. And as we're going through this, let us know if there's anything in there. If you like checking off things on your list and you're like, hey, I've done that. That's awesome. You can put an emoji checkbox in. So I'm really curious how many of these 4 things you guys have actually done so far. So first one we're going to dive into is the business identity.
Yeah, and so we can kind of start going through a couple of my slides if you want.
Go for it. Mm-hmm.
And again, I am not a lawyer in this place or a financial advisor, but I have done this for.
Oh, you know what? Companies. I put identity. It should be entity, shouldn't it? There you guys go. You get a little blooper. Ha ha ha. I'll create it and fix it. But entity, like an LLC.
Yeah. And so you're going to create a business entity, set up an operating documents, create a cap table, and then assign IP. And so this is what we're going to cover in a checklist. And so basically what you're trying to do is make your company investable, which is what holds your idea. And your idea is this living, growing, basically from.
Oh my gosh, we lost Ira. Hold on, Ira. You're going to have to say that again. It decided to drop you for a second.
It's okay. Technology.
Right?
Creating technology and an investment vehicle to grow your tech company into something. And so we're kind of used to we're kind of used to this in technology, where, especially in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's kind of the corporate operations of how you're going to structure this. And it usually comes through setting up a company of some type. And so a lot of times you hear LLCs being a very good way to start this. States have LLC laws. Certain states are better than other states. A lot of times you'll hear, everything from Delaware to Wyoming for different reasons. And so you're going to set up some type of a company corporate structure, right? And that's going to come with an EIN, basically. It's your identification number from the government that says this exists. It has its social security number, and you can get bank accounts, and then you can get everything that follows along with. Now I have a corporate entity that the government recognizes that's going to hold this. So it's for tax purposes and everything else. And normally again, this is just very high level, but you're going to have an amount of ownership or membership interest or shares or any part that subdivides that. And so you set up your business entity, the government recognizes this. Okay, great. So now I have a business. What do I do? What you're really trying to do is create a vessel that owns everything, that's own living, breathing thing, that owns your idea and everything you do to curate your idea, to curate your business, to actually build value in this so you can go get a piece of the market. And so most limited or a limited liability company usually comes with what's called an operating agreement. You'll hear this term a lot. And it's operating agreement. It's basically the structure in which that company operates, and it's submitted to the regulatories that can see that this is my board of directors, this is me as the CEO, this is how I operate. And so as you operate under your operating agreement, it's your bylaws for your initial structure. And so in an LLC, and it's saying
One
this
thing I just want to say is that I don't know if you did your disclaimer, Ira, but obviously Ira's not a lawyer or going to help you pick which one. But we're just saying that this business entity part, talk and find out for your state specifically. And we have links. So I will try to get those links into the chat, if not while we're live now, but I will give you a link that explains how to do it, but it's different in every state. LegalZoom is one where I set up my LLC. So I went through LegalZoom. They have services and stuff like that too.
And absolutely, Tessa, I did give my disclaimer, but yes,
I missed it.
I'm not a lawyer. I think it might have been what I cut out, and I'm not a financial advisor. I have done this personally for setting up business structures. I have usually a couple LLCs at most times in order to do different ventures and make sure that I'm building the proper paperwork and like moving these along so that they continue to grow basically, and as money goes through them. So, but in the startup world and in the entrepreneurial world, it's a lot of times what you want to do. You want to set something up that can take ownership of the value, and then who owns what part of it is what we're going to get into now. And it's basically, you'll hear this term thrown around a lot. It's a cap table or capitalization table, and it's as simple as you can make it. It's an Excel document for the most part. That's not all it is, but it just shows who owns what part of the business. And this is very important for funding. If you're the sole owner of an LLC, you own 100% of it. So you have 100% on the cap table, the capitalization table. But as you go and gain funding, you usually give something up for that funding, and it's either ownership or, future ownership. So if you give 20% up, now someone else owns 20% of that. And where it gets important is in the long run. And as if you watch most what we consider startups or technology-based businesses that are looking for future value, funding becomes a very important part of that. And you can take cases from Uber to any business you've probably heard of has had funding rounds, and they're in like their J version of funding. I think they're in G like $4 billion coming in to corporations because they're set up as a more formalized structure past that. But your operating agreement just basically shows who owns what part of it. And there's some interesting, and because you have to disclose this back on ownership, and it's part of taxes and other things. And so as you bring money in, it shows that the business has now money to deploy. And so it's part of knowing who owns what part of it is very important. And you want to keep this really simple at first, and you want to grow it from there as you can grow, because you're going to run into these things like mutual delusion, like how dilutable is my equity?
Oh,
Not
right.
delusion, but
wow, it sounds really complicated now.
Yeah, and so, as money comes in, normally the shares go down, and it can be like your percentage goes down. So if you had 80-20, then you bring in another, like you give off another 30% of equity, then normally it starts lowering the people's initial contribution. And it's not a bad thing either. That's how you get operational capital. And so a lot of times expansion capital like follows this this kind of pathway, which is why the bicycle is kind of cool. It goes from, I have an idea, I'm going to put up my hard-earned money a lot of times, or what I have, and I'm going to get to a place where now I can explain it through a business plan. Basically, it has a purpose, and now I can start to formulate this, and then okay, I got to a certain place that I need more capital to grow this, to go after a future market value, future market cap. And you basically then are in the position of giving up equity. There's a ton of different ways to raise funding from, loans, equity, and all that stuff. And so if you give up some capital for, call it seed round, which is now I need to really seed this idea in the ground and like start to build a plan. And then you'll hear things like, venture capital, angel, all this stuff moving into Series A. It's really everything I've ever done. They want to know these things. You have a company, you have an operating agreement. Do you have a cap table?
And the cap table, to clarify, it's just an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, right, Ira?
That's how it starts. And there's some interest. That's how it starts. It's like who owns what at how many units or how much a percentage. It's basically a percentage of ownership. And then it gets more detailed than that. It's got documents that go along with them. But when you start a business, make sure somewhere it's written who owns what part of it, so that because the business is then actually in charge of that piece of it.
And we'll give you guys some example ones. And then again, if you want to make sure that you're asking the right people, this information is coming from a trusted source. So find, like we talked about in the beginning of naming the business, it's either a lawyer. Thank you guys for putting the in the chat too. I know Odin, you said not all lawyers are created equal. So interview them and know what you want before you're going, for sure. Good comment there, Odin. But same thing with this cap table. I mean, like you just can't pull these things out of, you're not pulling them out of thin air. You want to make sure that you know what you're doing with the back end of that as well, like as far as the numbers, right? Yeah,
and there's some, I'm pretty sure it's still around. There's actually some online like software as a service systems for this, where it used to be called CapShare. I believe they were bought by someone else, but basically it's an online where everyone can see. It's kind of like open ledger. Everyone can see the amount of ownership that's linked into it. So it's again, it goes along with being able to make this easy, but it's just
because an investor comes in, they're going to ask you for these. Have you done these things, or do you have this? So you would be sharing it possibly with an investor.
Yeah, and so because if you have someone that owns 45% of your company and someone's coming in to invest, they're going to want to know, like someone's coming in to put money in, they're going to want to know who that other party is, what your relationship is, and a lot of those things. So it's part of your due diligence disclosure side of it a lot of times. And then as you get those three things set, you're really working on your idea, and it's either intellectual property, trade secrets, something that goes along with it. And so what you'll often be required to do if you have patents, you'll be required to do a what we call intellectual property like Vend-in document, but it's basically an intellectual property assignment piece that says the company owns this piece of intellectual property. And so that can be patents that you have in your name, that can be, a myriad of things that go along with creating value, because at the end of the day, we're trying to show this business has value. So the business
owns the IP, not you personally, but the business owns it. Is that how it works?
It has rights to it. It might not own it. And so then if the business then something happens, the rights will come back to you if it's personal rights and you own the business. But basically the business has rights, or it has an assignment, an agreement for those things created. So it has ownership of it. And so it's and this one comes a lot into the the intellectual property and those components where if the business owns it, now it's valuable because it came from it came from you, got transferred or put into the business. Now the business can grow that through capital. And so a lot of times through capital awareness. So now the business becomes a lot more investable then, because
investable, my favorite new word today. Investable, yeah. Investable, and we looked it up, so it really is
kind of a word. Yeah, no, it's right there. yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Tessa.
no, that's okay. So let's say, and again, I want to see in the chat if you guys can find the icon or even say done. If you've done these things for your business, because I just want to see how you guys are progressing on things over there in the chat. I know I see you guys in the live. We're going to say hi in just a little bit here, but let us know if you're done with those things. If you've done 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those. And so Ira, let's say, obviously the next step is there's a whole bunch more to raising money for your business. We've done shows about how to do the PowerPoint, the pitch decks. Ira's a wealth of information. We'll have him back on to talk more about that. How to structure your pitch, how to make sure you're getting in front of the right people. This is just setting your business up so that you can get the funding when you need it.
Yeah,
right?
and absolutely. And so I would love to open this up after this, like to more questions, but it really is. It's just making sure the framework and the structures there that you have, if you're doing a build a house analogy, that you pulled the permits, that you have rights to do this, that you're now going to go lay the foundation and then continue to build from it. So it's an important part. And I think sometimes it gets overlooked that this is what you're really trying to create business value and, grow that into something greater. And you are the people, process, product, as it's said a lot of times, that's what's investable. But without some way for people to invest into, you don't want to cause friction or have any barriers to entry when people are ready to give you funding, because it's just a part of it. Well, what am I investing in? And so it's, well, here, this is my operating agreement. This is my structure. This is my cap table. And this is the intellectual property documents that go along with everything we've created thus far. And so
this was super helpful. Let us know if you guys found this helpful too. I do know, I see some of you over there that are saying that you have things, they've checked them off on your list already. So I'm going to go through those and give you guys virtual high fives in a moment here. But if you have a question for Ira, go ahead and type it in and we'll see if we can get and your questions answered. We have about 10 minutes left. And I like that. That's a cool
this
sign.
is just how And it's like, so everything's everything you ever wanted sitting on the other side of fear. And so as you build like the framework for this, as you get training and as you're more comfortable, it basically makes you, it lowers the fear level. And so that's what you're really trying to do a lot of times. And that's basically, I just wanted to present that stuff, but corporate operations are important. And it's part of my normal checklist of what am I going to do. Business planning or business model planning is very important, because if you have a business plan per se, a corporate structure to take money, you have people to run it, and then you have a product that's in it, now you're very investable at future values and at the value you're at that you've created.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ira. I don't see any questions over in the chat yet. We'll give a couple seconds here. While I'm doing that, though, I'm just going to go through the done ones. So I know I have Bill with Goliath, high-rise sports chair, and he says, done. Oh, that is not the right banner, but as always, let's see. So good job, Bill. Happy that you got that done. And then let's see. So I know Aziza, who's on, congratulations. Aziza actually got funding for her business as well. And so she said, it's a very important topic. Thanks for sharing with us.
Absolutely. And Aziza is my new hero.
She is.
Greatest. Yeah. Like she's amazing. Like, and then going through all this and seeing that I didn't know most of this. I ran a C Corp when I got out of the military. And so I just kind of took it over and I was like, okay, everything's in place. I'm running a business, not an investment. Like I'm not trying to create an idea. I'm trying just to run a business. So it was fairly straightforward in that case for me, but how you're trying to really take something that you've created, wrap a package around it, wrap the little protection shell around it. There's other important reasons on why to do this for basic liability reasons and business structure. And so now the business is the thing, it's the eggshell around the yolk that is my idea. And then we're going to hatch this and let it grow and then feed it money till it turns into a pterodactyl.
Right. I love it. Love it. There we go. Now I got better branding. Okay. So Goliath high-rise sports chair, but Bill, so he actually said that he's already done it and that it was pretty easy was when he went through it. And Yeah, he said it was very easy. But, just check it off your list, right? You want to. So Gloria, done. Yay, virtual high fives. Bill's done. Aziz is done and done with funding, no less. Starter app. Good job. Congratulations. I do know that we have a couple other people that said they were done. Oh, and Katie, you had a question, so I'm going to go ahead and put that one up here for you. So you're an IdeaPros partner launching an app in a few months. What is the typical timing on forming an LLC? Do you know how long it takes?
How long it takes? It's not a very Bill and Aziz, other people. It's not a very arduous process, and so it basically takes wanting to form an LLC, finding someone to help me do that. Like Tessa said, LegalZoom is an option for it. There's usually an outlet of someone that will go file this for you. Depending upon what state you live in, it changes the rules and requirements. With technology, especially in the software world, it is important because that it's set up at some time. You don't need to go super premature. You just need to know this should be on your checklist of things to do, so that when you have the ability to deploy software to a future amount of people and gain basically a whole nother part of these checklists I make, are to get from MVP, how do you get MVP documentation, and then you get data supports my plan, and then the company owns that whole piece of it, and then you start getting users, which is basically data.
And that's from the software side. So he's talking from an app.
From the software side.
So there's slightly different wording, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Basically the same thing. So except for the implications of owning a business, which I would say are taxes and having to keep up with that. I mean, it's not too early. There's multiple revenue streams that you can build in any type of business. It doesn't have to be just sales of product. It can be, investment consulting. There can be a lot of different things that you can do under proper business structure. But I think the biggest one is that, or one of the biggest things is just making sure that is done before it has to be done. Before someone's, I want to get well. It's kind of like pre-flight checks, right? Make sure you check that off before you go flying. And right. I fly a lot. I'm very passionate about trying to bring fun life into all this, and I try to organize things the way I like to fly paragliders and do other things. Make sure the buckles are strapped. Make sure you're doing your stuff, and then go off for the ride. So
right. Well, we have another question, and this is, and again, we're not lawyers, so we may not be able to explain this completely. But does the LLC get formed in the place where you reside in their case? So where your house is. I know everyone, you can file in other locations, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's it. It can be some state, like we were saying, some states for LLCs make it better and worse. There's some where you reside laws. Again, yeah, not lawyer, but you'll see a lot of companies formed in Delaware because of LLCs in Delaware, because basically some of their rules and regulations make it very good for ownership in those states of an LLC. And then you've probably seen a bunch of the pop-ups in order to try to get more tax revenue through things like Nevada, Wyoming. Some states are really easy. Some states are like ours. It's just a little more costly. And so,
right. But good question. Very good question.
And I will answer that one. It's easier in your state, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it makes it nice if you have to go deliver any paperwork
and all the that goes along with it. So your state of residency, a lot of times it's worth it.
Yeah, good question, Pam. When you add an investor and the ownership cap structure changes and you add a high-level manager, do you have to redo the operating agreement each time?
I mean, this is a very long-tailed question. It depends upon how your operating agreement was set up the first time. And so again, operating agreements, I would do a little research. It doesn't have to be over complex, but there's things like, are you I don't want to go into it because it's too
That's a good question though, but you know what?
And depends upon what their role is. And you'll see a lot of times, or you'll hear things like preferred interest or preferred shares, and then how you're breaking down a cap table on payouts. And so there's incentive shares. And so it depends upon what that person, if he's a manager of the entity or just an appointed like person. And so it basically, it depends. Normally it's set in the bylaws of your operating agreement to begin with, that if you bring on a new manager, what's the course of action. And these documents range from, 6 or 7 pages up to hundreds of pages of operating agreement stuff. So it can vary. And so make it easy on yourself is what I would say.
One more question. Actually, if I'll do one more scan, but when's the right time during development to open the business, to actually set it up?
Before you're looking for funding. That's my biggest one, because and especially if you are the owner of it, but before you're going to make the plan to go, start pitching for dollars, the dog and pony show of a lot of this stuff, like before you have need for someone to put money in. So that's the really big part of this, is you want this in place before people, especially as you start getting more sophisticated investors on the table, before that happens. And so that's what I can say. And it can be, you can work on an idea for 10 years in your yard and, like on a new lawnmower or something, and never have to have a business around it. It can help for like spending money through a business because you get some benefit for that, but you don't need anything like that. But if you're like, I just created the perfect lawnmower and I'm going to go get John Deere to help me fund this, you better have a corporate structure in place for the most time.
Perfect. And I just want to say, Cassiano over there on YouTube, I see you, and you had mentioned that operating agreements are very important and they vary greatly. So agreed. But I just wanted to say hi to you over there. I know you're, we see you. We are split between YouTube and Facebook. We're live in both places, so you can go to whichever one's easiest for you. Thank you so much, Ira, for being on. We've had a really, for me, it's interesting to dive into the business side, because I'm always in the marketing realm. And that's where, for me, I'd rather spend most of my time. You can't forget the business side of what you're trying to accomplish. So thank you for helping us to refocus over on that. I'm going to let you go. And then I'll just talk through with our partners and fans for just 1 second. So thank you, Ira. We'll see you next time. Thank you all very much. Thank you. All right, guys. So thank you again for being here. If you haven't subscribed, we're here every Friday at noon Pacific time, unless I'm in the hospital, and that's only happened once. So we are here with you every Friday at noon. Just hit the reminder bell and definitely sign up to get reminder notifications. The easiest way for us to get this into your hot little hands when we go live, so that you can chat with us and be in the conversation, is for it to send to text. So we do have a text reminder form in our post. You can go ahead and sign up for text reminders, and then you'll get notified when we go live. We're starting to text earlier and earlier because we have so many people that want to get notifications. So it may come up to half an hour early. And you could sit on the channel and wait for us to go live. That's totally cool. But if you do come over to the channel to watch live and you're there early, you might have to hit refresh at the top of the hour just so that it actually shows up. Because I've had people say that they didn't see anything for a while and they were on it with us. So thank you, guys. Oh, I have a couple more virtual high fives to give. Thank you. Thank you. I did see Corey. I think it was Corey. Jim Warner with 3-Second Genius. Done. Good job. Virtual high five. You got some of these things done. Corey over there with Yeti to work. I'm forgetting. Bongo. Bongo. Let me know if I got it right, Corey. I feel like I did, but let me know. That done on 1 and 2. Congratulations. And so, it's something that you're going to keep working on and make sure that you get these things accomplished, checked off your list. Thank you, guys. Have a blessed week. We'll see you next week. Bye.